this morning. I think we're going to learn a lot from him. We had a nice conversation on the phone, and there's some really interesting things. Probably some of you are wondering, how in the world could I ever compare to NASA? Like, they have all kinds of cool stuff that they can do, but the truth is they are a government agency and they have their own constraints just like anyone else. Did you already start the Google Plus? Okay, so hi Google Plus audience. Sorry we're late, glad you're there. So yeah, I'd really like to begin by introducing Mark, and Mark has been with NASA since 1999, right? May of 99 as a contractor, and he has the sort of inner workings. He started really in the communications department doing that kind of work and slowly moved into digital, and finally now has taken control of the International Space Center station social media. So it's very exciting that he has that because he can see every day some of the stuff that we can learn from. So I'm excited to invite him here. So welcome, Mark. Thanks. And I did have trouble plugging this in this morning, so just if you want to talk about this on Twitter, you can do space_station. That's his handle, okay? So space_station. So you can talk about it that way. So that being said, I'm going to get started with a couple of things that we had talked about, and that is how kind of tell us about what a day in the life of Mark is like. Let's start with that as a social media channel manager.
I try to dig myself out of a ditch every single day. It is a tsunami of content that we have to swim through, and we have to learn to swim and surf and keep our head above water. There's so much content comes at us from so many different directions, and we used to have a lot more people doing this stuff, but we've gone through budget cuts, we've gone through layoffs, and we have to do more with less. So we have to think smarter, we have to work harder, and our managers learn that they can't micromanage us anymore. They have to take the leash off and let the animals do their work. And they've been very, very good with that. And we have been able to quantify our success on social media. And they've basically rolled out the red carpet for us. We showed lots of results, incredible results over the last 2 years. And now the young people are starting to come in from college now, and they're coming in with new, fresh ideas to help us move along farther and do even more exciting, more incredible things. So that's fundamentally what we've been about for the last 2 years as far as social media is concerned.
Could you tell us a little bit, you talk about the tsunami of content. So can you tell us a little bit about how it's working for you right now? So I think we talked a little bit about it first. It was hard to get content, I guess. So could you talk about how you've gone from like hard to get content to too much content? Because I think some of us would like to have that problem in companies. So,
well, when I started in May 1999, we were just an ordinary press relations, public relations shop. Press releases, features, and we were learning how to put all this stuff on the internet. And so we were kind of like the Fred Flintstone of public relations in the late 90s, early 2000s. But the higher ups, the senior managers, they knew that things were changing really, really fast and that we needed to jump on that. And so we had to come up with more ideas to tell more stories. It wasn't just enough to say, oh, there's a spacewalk today. It's going to end in 6 hours. We have to tell what's going on this spacewalk, who the spacewalkers are. For instance, we had a spacewalk on Monday, and there were 2 Russians, and there was one Russian who completed literally his 10th spacewalk. So, and that ties a NASA record. There's another astronaut with 10 spacewalks. So we try to find stories inside of stories inside of stories to make it much more interesting. Because if we just talk about the technical details, people's eyes roll in the back of their heads. We try to humanize it. We try to find a nice nugget or a nice piece of inspiration where people can relate to. Tug on those heartstrings, get those antennas poking up. If you talk about cables and wires, we lose people. So we try to humanize those stories.
And that makes a lot of sense because even though you guys do have some great stories to tell, probably it feels like you want to do more sciencey kind of, nuts and bolts things. Is that true? Like as far as your commanders and that kind of stuff, do they look at that and say, hey, we need to get the science of this out there?
Yes, on the International Space Station, it is an orbiting laboratory, and that is the most fundamental part of what I do is, and what a lot of us do. We have to tell the story of science going on in space. And what is that science for? Well, that science is to make human life better on Earth. And secondary to that is to make astronauts more healthier in space for longer periods of time as we go to Mars. We tell that story. So science is extremely fundamental. Another Twitter account that I don't work on, but what my coworker does, is at ISS_research. And you can learn all about the science that takes place every day on the space station. Just interesting things like, squirting coloring fluid into a sphere of water, letting it float around, to growing plants in space and eating those plants, starting to grow your own food, and even cancer research, things like that.
Right, and so how do you kind of organize all this content coming in from you? Because you told me that what happens is people are just now, because they've seen the success of the channel, they are all sending you stuff constantly and asking you to post it. How is that? How are you kind of managing the expectations of people within your own company?
We learned to say no. No, but really, like going back to the tsunami of content, there's so much coming at us from so many different angles: imagery, video, press releases, features, GIFs, and we had to prioritize that stuff. And literally everything that everybody sends us to them is just as important as everything else. But we only have so much time to do things. And of course, everybody knows that people are on social media at certain times. We want to hit those high traffic times. It's really impossible to put everything on social media at the same time, because then you lose the effect immediately. So I call it sort of like the domino process. One domino after another, you just knock them down. So, and we want to target our post, we want to schedule our post, but so much content is being thrown at us so fast, so often, that it's extraordinarily difficult putting out at the best time, the most positive time for them to get the maximum reach.
Yeah. So do you follow that? Do you look at when your best times are? So do you maybe schedule out your best posts at the best times and then like fill in, or how are you kind of doing that?
Well, we have slow days and we have busy days, and Monday was a particularly busy day. The spacewalk was going on, and the astronauts harvested lettuce and ate it for the first time. And so literally, I mean, we must have posted like 24 pieces of content on Twitter, on Google+, on Facebook, within the space of about 3 or 4 hours, just one thing after another. So, well, the results go up and down. People really like our pictures. So if we post like 4 really cool pictures, we posted 4 pictures of the astronauts just peeling apart the lettuce and eating it, going yum yum. And we got like 750,000 views, which is really, really nice. And then I posted a link to a feature we posted about the spacewalk that got like maybe 120,000 views. People were really more excited about growing food in space than the actual spacewalk. So,
yeah, 120 views. Who would take that? the low one. We all would. So yeah, I mean, knowing what content is resonating with your fans is really important. And I think one of the things you said early on, which I want to kind of highlight because it's really the theme of what this talk is about, is the whole integration of what you're doing with the overall mission. And that's why I put up that graphic that said, off the earth for the, or whatever it is, off the earth for the earth. And off the earth for the earth, can you explain a little bit about how that mission and those kinds of things kind of permeate through all of the communications, including your own?
Well, Off the Earth for the Earth is a very broad campaign, and it sounds exactly what it says. We are doing research off the Earth to benefit the Earth. So, for instance, we get trolls who say, why are you spending billions of dollars in space when you can use that money to build homes on Earth, to build, to cure cancer? Well, the research we're doing in space, like I said earlier, will create more efficient, more successful drugs to cure cancer on Earth, diabetes, and things like Hodgkin's disease, such things like that. But the Off the Earth, For the Earth campaign is very, very broad. We want to communicate how astronauts exercise so they can keep their bones strong. And we can take that research and apply it to people here who have weaker bones, who have weak muscles, and we can apply those same concepts here that we learn up in space. And that campaign is like, it's television, it's print, it's web, it's the blog, it's social media, and there are a lot of hands in that cookie jar. So to try to really tame that beast, you don't want to drag that beast and hold it down for too long. And you really got to let people run with the ball. And so it's just get that message out. That's primarily the importance of that campaign.
Right. So a lot of your content, you try to like connect it with that idea, right? That this has a bigger reach than just what we're doing in space for NASA. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing in general for people to take here, because I mean, how do you find those things that kind of hook in with your mission for your whole organization? I think that's interesting. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is how you find things to piggyback off of that people are interested in, and you can pick up on it. So could you talk a little bit about some of the hashtag campaigns that kind of sprung up out of that?
Well, we started really getting serious about our social media about 2 years ago. We were learning best practices. Instead of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck, we were doing our research and what was important, talking to other people and going around the country and learning from them. And so campaigns, take your content, segment it, target it, give it a nice, neat, put a nice bow on it, nice presentation to it, pictures, videos, things like that. And of course, you want to include your users and followers at all times in that campaign. Listen to them, reach out to them. Probably the most exciting campaign was our first campaign. It was called Spot the Station. And we have an app online, spotthestation.nasa.gov. You type in your hometown, it'll tell you times to go outside and look at the space station flying overhead. So I guess in about March of last year, SpaceX had launched a spacecraft for the space station. And we have a lot of amateur astronomers out there who follow this stuff religiously. And they were taking pictures of the space station going up ahead and this little dim streak, the SpaceX spacecraft following it along. So you get this bright streak, you get this dim streak, and they're sharing these pictures with us on Facebook in the middle of our mission coverage. And I'm watching this stuff come down like, are you freaking kidding me? This blew my mind. I was like, thank you so much. People are really paying attention. So this is a great way to show our managers the value of social media. And so I collected these pictures. They're beautiful too. Streaks, and you can see like the Milky Way, stars and trees and mountains and over here like that. I collected a bunch of these pictures, and the very next morning I shared them, and I credited the people that shared them with us. And I thanked them, and our numbers just shot through the roof. Our managers loved it, and we decided to continue that campaign. We were posting, I believe it was every Thursday on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook. We asked people to share their pictures with us, from very simple ones, just a dot in the sky. Oh, look, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, blah, blah, blah. And to others, really outstanding photographers who could position the space station going over, and going between like two mountains. Just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. We shared all of that. And that is the type of engagement that we really wanted. And that's what really shot us through the roof and got our numbers growing, that got our managers really, really paying attention to us and definitely supporting us. So that's, I think, a great example of organic engagement right there.
Yeah. Speaking of organic engagement, I'm going to go back to another hashtag campaign of yours in a minute, which I thought was also really cool. Talking about organic engagement, do you sponsor any posts? Do you guys pay any kind of advertising for the page to get likes or get sponsored content?
We pay for nothing. It is all organic. Only the only thing on bureaucracy that I'm aware of that pays for any advertising is the armed forces. They want recruits. So, but no, we don't pay for any of that stuff. So that's why we have to come up with the best content that we can, massage it, finesse it, and so we get the most reach possible.
Right, and as part of that, because you don't pay for it, have you seen any impact of the different changes that have happened on Facebook over the last year? Because there's been a lot of, obviously, impact. Has that impacted you as well, even something popular with all those wonderful photos?
Okay, so I guess it was in October of last year, we hit 1 million fans on Facebook, and all of a sudden we're the big boys now. We're hanging out with the big boys, and Facebook's algorithm is kicking in, it's throttling us down now. We're seeing our growth slowing. But what we haven't seen is any effect to our engagement nor our reach. Our engagement and reach is about the same. And I brought some statistics. So in July of last year, on average, for 1 month, we had a 14% reach. 14% of our followers are seeing our posts. And our engagement rate in July of last year was 5.4%. And in July of this year, just last month, there really wasn't much difference. Our reach was 15.3%, and our engagement rate was 4%. So a little bit lower on the engagement part. But it's our growth rate that has really fallen. So July of last year, 19% growth rate. So that's just phenomenal, explosive growth. And just last month, we had 4% growth rate. So, and we want to benchmark. We want to really know how we're doing, so we compare ourselves to other space brands on Facebook. And right now, out of 6, we're number 4, but we're growing the fastest. So we're right behind space.com. We're going to catch up to them very, very soon. They're at 2.1 million, we're at 2 billion. So space.com, just last week, they only grew 0.3%. And just last week, we grew 1%. So we're catching up with them very, very fast. But we're kind of nose to nose with the Hubble Space Telescope Facebook page. They're at 0.8%, so they're at 1.5 million. I was a little worried there last month that they were going to really be nipping on our heels. But NASA, after the Pluto flyby, or just before the Pluto flyby, they had 10.5 million fans. And after the Pluto flyby, they exploded. And just in the space of about a month, they got about 1.5 million fans just on the Pluto flyby alone. So, they really hit it out of the park. And I don't know if you heard the term Twitter jacking. We like hop on somebody else's campaign, like the Super Bowl, for instance, Oreo cookies, wants to jump on that, and capture all those audiences. So we jumped on the Pluto flyby, okay, of the International Space Station. And so it took 9 years for that satellite to go from Earth all the way to Pluto. Well, 9 years ago, that space station was less than half its size. Now, we shared that pic what the space station looked like on the day it launched. And we got a lot of engagement on that. So nice, neat little things like that, to really pique people's interest.
I also want to talk to you about that kind of jacking kind of idea too, with the ISS play ball hashtag that you guys launched. Could you explain that a little bit, to the play ball and kind of what that was? That
originated from the astronaut office. We have an astronaut lead there who coordinates all the social media for the various astronauts off the Earth and on the space station. It was him and an intern, and there was an astronaut on the space station. He returned home, I believe it was in May, and he's a big baseball fan. I believe a Baltimore Orioles fan, and they coordinated with him that the baseball season is starting. Let's take a picture of all the U.S. cities that have major league baseball teams, and let's see if users can figure out what city that is and what team who plays in there. And we call it hashtag ISS Playball. And I wasn't part of that. That was somebody else's program, but I believe they would share 4 pictures, and you click on a picture to find out what city that was. And I don't know the numbers, but it was very, very successful. I thought it was very intriguing, very clever too. So
that's interesting to me too, because it's not really about the space station per se. It's just about the perspective of like sports from the space station. So I think that's something we can take away as a takeaway, because like look around you to see what your company can kind of jump onto and to kind of take advantage of from your point of view. So what your point of view on a different take. So I thought that was really interesting for that reason. Could you tell us a little bit about, and you kind of did a little bit, but how you measure success on your both Facebook page and your Twitter page? Like, what do you look for success?
Three things: growth, reach, and engagement. And if we can show to our managers that we're doing better than everyone else, specifically space-related brand pages, they give us a thumbs up and they just let us go about doing our jobs. So, but we need to benchmark that. Who not just how do we compare with other space-related brand pages, but what is a real benchmark for reach and growth? So, February of 2014, Ogilvy.com, they did a blog on how organic reach was crashing on Facebook. And they measured it and they compared it to pages that had over 500,000 fans and ordinary pages that had less than 500,000 fans. And I compared our reach and engagement to this specific chart right here. And across the board, we're doing 2 and 3 times that rate. And that was a very important benchmark to really deliver to our managers. And that's where a very important point where they realize that this is, social media is extremely valuable. We need to keep this up. So let's see. So for a Facebook page in February 2014, average reach was 2.1% if you had 500,000 followers or more. So on our reach, at least in July 2014, was 14%, so 7 times that. That is extraordinarily incredible stuff. So, and this is without paid reach either. And we're not trying to sell anything. We're not trading shares for coupons, retweets, for recipes and things like that. So, I mean, we're providing high value content that people really want to see. What does their city look like from space? What does their airport look like from space? We shared a bunch of imagery of airports from across the world that was a big hit. And also, people love to see storms from space. Our biggest post reached nearly 10 million people in April, and that was a Typhoon Mayak. And well, Typhoon Sudulor just hit Taiwan, I think it was last week. And when we shared imagery of that, we were getting like 1-2 million views for those posts. It's extraordinarily incredible. So yeah, our success, how we measure that is, again, our growth, which is above average, our reach, and our engagement, which is above average. I would like to know what that benchmark is today, what the average reach and engagement rate is of an average Facebook page, specifically one with 500,000 or more followers. Because this is this data was from over a year and a half ago.
Right. So that is always a challenge, right? Finding those benchmarks to kind of put your page against. Do you use the following thing on Facebook to see how these other pages? Is that how you're getting these numbers for the other pages? Tell us a little bit about your tool, sort of what you're using.
Okay, about 2.5 years ago, the International Space Station program started what they call the Destination Station. And this is a traveling exhibit. We have a mobile trailer, and we go to various museums, hospitals, schools, and we talk about the space station. And then we were taking just pictures of people having fun with all this stuff and posting it to our Twitter account. And we had a new manager. She was like, well, how are we doing? And we didn't have the tools to find out how are we doing. And I had to find some tools to do this stuff. So I talked to one of our contractors. Well, he recommended Crowd Booster. That's a great way to measure our growth. And but I didn't know how to measure reach nor engagement yet. And the numbers I saw on Crowd Booster were probably a little bit too broad and probably less meaningful than what my manager wanted. But thank God, Facebook Analytics came out. Facebook Insights and Twitter Analytics, where I could dig really deep into those numbers. So what I do is I download those spreadsheets, I port to those numbers, and I try to find relationships. My manager looks at the charts, lines going up like this, and dots, columns going up and down like that. So yeah, that's essentially how we do it. It took a long time for me to learn how to do those metrics, doing a lot of research and talking to other coworkers and finding out what what the meaningful data was that was going to really impress our management.
Great. And of course, you guys aren't really selling anything, so that's, there's no ROI per se, but there is some reputational things that you have to deal with. And speaking of that, you talked about trolls earlier on. How do you deal with the trolls? Because I mean, once you get to a certain level, I don't care what you are, they're going to come, right? The trolls are out there. So can you talk a little bit about how you manage the trolls, and do you feed the trolls? Do you talk to them? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, during a mission, people are paying attention, and they're doing a lot of, hey, go NASA, hey, I love what you do, and then you'll get the people, like I mentioned earlier, why are you wasting all that money up in space, Then you get the religious types, science is false, and, follow the one true God sort of thing, and then you get the spam, hey, I just turned 18, follow my page, kind of nonsense. So we delete all that, but if we can directly answer this person, this troll, we'll do so, but we're not going to throw fuel on the fire. So for instance, about this guy who complained that we were spending too much money in space, we need to bring it back to Earth. And he specifically mentions, use that money to cure cancer on Earth. Well, I knew that we had experiments directly related to solving cancer, or curing cancer. And I was like, do I really want to reply to this guy? Is this guy going to go crazy? And what I decided to do, I knew that there are specific experiments going on out there. And we had pages on the web that talked about these experiments. And I decided I'm going to give this guy some links to directly address his issue. You know what? We're in space, and we are doing science that you can't do on Earth. Here are some links where we specifically address cancer research in space that you cannot do on Earth. We're going to invent new designer drugs that cannot be created here on Earth. And that absolutely blew up. We must have got 76 replies alone to his reply. And he did not reply once. To that. I guess we shut him up pretty quick, but every response after that was totally positive. So we want to prove the value of going to space, staying in space, and living in space. And we have so much content, so much science that we can show to you, our users, that we're making a difference up there in space.
Yeah, and I thought that was good. I mean, that particular example to me was interesting because you responded to the troll, but not really so much to the troll. You responded in a way that other people looking what the troll said could see what they needed to see. So somebody might have said to that comment, well, yeah, why not? Why don't we do cancer research? And then they said, oh, we are, and that made them happy. So that, I think, is really an interesting way to handle some of those things. Now, not all of them. You don't answer all of them, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah. You delete and block, or what do you do?
We delete, we block, especially the 18-year-old girls, so who want to meet new boyfriends, that sort of thing. So we get, let me go to Twitter, for instance, on our @space_station account. It's primarily news people that are following us, and it's really wonderful when we post a link to something going on in space, new rocket launched. We'll get in the bottom right corner, such and such just favorited your account. There'll be somebody from ABC News. It'll be somebody from NPR. It's really exciting. And what really is super, super exciting is when you get the rock stars who all of a sudden follow you, the movie stars who all of a sudden follow you, like, what? Well, I gotta go check them out, And so we had a spacewalk at the beginning of the year. Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction followed us. He goes, hey, NASA, what's up? You guys are rocking. It's like, thank you very much, So we had this little thing, like 3 or 4 tweets back and forth, and that was the end of that. But it's nice things like that people are really paying attention to us.
Yeah. So yeah, that's always good. Those are those warm fuzzies that you can get from social media once in a while. One other thing I was going to ask you about was about video. So we had talked a little bit about video and the importance of video. How are you incorporating video into what you're doing, and what are the results you're seeing from that? What's working, what's not working, that kind of thing.
So last month, the video guys were like, hey, how are we doing on social media? How are our 8, 10, 15, 20 minute videos doing on social media? I had to tell them, nobody's watching it. Sorry. Yeah, your videos are beautiful. They look great on television, but nobody's watching them to completion. And my boss knew, I knew that shorter videos, quicker videos, you get better engagement. People watch it to completion. So the longer a video, the less people watched it. So if you had a video that was a minute or less, the majority of them watched it to at least the halfway point, if not to the completion point. So we had to tell these outstanding video producers, shorten your videos. And they just kind of swallowed their hearts, you know, and I think I made some enemies, but my boss backed me up, and I don't know where we're at yet on that particular effort, but I know that people are starting to move in that direction. They would deliver us first a title, and then a description, and obviously the video. Well, the title would usually be too long, and then the description would be too long. You know, we want nice, neat, quick to read descriptions. And you don't want to click read more, because that just takes too much effort, you know, and who's going to read all of that anyway with all the details? So we would shorten it down for them. I told them, shorten it down, okay? None of this long run-on stuff. None of these titles that are an entire paragraph long. So, like the old books from the 1700s, nothing that long anymore, please. So, I got data from like 80 videos that we posted on Facebook, approximately 40 videos on Twitter, and the results are all the same. Shorter videos are better. And you know, users, we got to follow our users. We don't want them to run away. So they're going to tell us what they want, and we have to adjust. You know, simple as that.
And I think that's always hard in communications departments to like change the style of the communication that's worked in the past. And it's tempting to want to use the same stuff across all the channels, right? Instead of having to like make something special for each channel. So that's interesting to me. Because I think long-term video is probably going to be a huge play for like, I mean, especially you guys have amazing video to show, I would think, right? Yeah. What I'm going to do now, I'm sorry, I'm just taking it away from you, but I do want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions, because you may have some questions that I wouldn't come up with. So does anybody have something that you're kind of wanting to know, like what does a page this big do, and how does it work? So anybody want to ask a question? Yes?
How big is your team that you have doing social media, and what tool do you use for all of you work together? Is it suite? What can you tell them best?
So she asked, how big is your team, and what tool are you using to work together?
Well, our social media team was very, very small this time a year ago, and we're growing now, and we're getting more and more people on board. So I represent the contract side. My contract is ITAMS, Information Technology and Multimedia Services. I'm the social media lead for that contract, and my counterpart, she's a national civil servant, and so we partner on all of this stuff. And then we have a lady who does a lot of the science part. She relates those stories to social media. So that's 3 people. And then we have an astronaut social media representative. That's 4 persons. And we have probably twice as many who can post anything to social media at any time. You know, they have access to the accounts. They can go through Sprinkler, for instance, to automate their posts. They can go directly, just post natively. So there's probably 4 of us who work on this daily. Another 8 who can post anything necessary. If we're not in the office, if there's an emergency, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, they could post something if they wanted to. So I would say 12, maybe.
But 4 regular, and you use Sprinkler right now. So
I don't use Sprinkler.
Okay, tell us why.
I'm not using Sprinkler right now because I was in the hospital with that training, so I got very, very sick, horrible sore throat, and that was in the middle of training. So I have not had an opportunity to really dive into Sprinkler. I post natively primarily, and I kind of mistrust using tools like that. Using another tool to post to another tool. It seems like it's a middleman right there, but I got to get over that. So, and again, I use Crowd Booster for my metrics and course, Facebook Insights, Twitter Analytics for all of that.
Great. So I mean, simple. I mean, you know, they're not like, you know, this is all within almost everybody's budget that's sitting here, right? Posting native into space. But any other questions? Can space lovers donate to NASA? It's called your taxes, but yeah.
Sure, please. You know, I'll have a cup of coffee. Thank you.
Share the contact.
Well, you can certainly show your support by writing your congressman a letter. You know, write us a nice tweet, something like that. But no, there's no donation box.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll let her go first. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sort of related, not directly, but a lot of the astronauts I follow on Twitter, are they actually doing their own tweeting or is somebody managing their account?
She's asking if the astronauts are doing their own tweeting or if they're being managed. And why are I know this answer, but I'll let you answer it.
So an interesting tidbit, bit of trivia. I believe it was in 2009 the first tweet came from space. Well, that's not entirely true. We had an astronaut in space, and the representative on the ground tweeted for them. But now we do have astronauts tweeting from space. Scott Kelly, he's living in space for a year. He'll return home in March. He's literally taking pictures and tweeting those pictures. And then we have a representative on the ground who will retweet those pictures on our various Twitter accounts. So I'm not entirely sure of all the technical capabilities that are going on up there. But astronauts are getting more and more, what's the word for it, brave when it comes to social media. They don't have to jump through all the hoops to go through all the PR bureaucracy to post something. But when an astronaut posts something, it becomes an official document, you know, and we have to catalog that. So before an astronaut would share something, we would catalog it. It'll be days before it will be released. Now it's the other way around. You release it immediately, and then we catalog it.
There's a follow-on question for that, yes? No, yeah, what's your
Do
question?
you have some sort of training beforehand for astronauts on what?
Do you have training for astronauts
what they should
beforehand?
say, what they should
Yeah, do you have training for astronauts? And by the way, he was talking about Scott Kelly, which is at Station CDR Kelly, Kelly. So bomb him, guys, on Twitter right now. Say, hey, we're talking about you. Do you train them? Not you, but do they get trained?
The astronauts are trained, and you have to teach them to communicate very complicated subjects in 140 characters or less, and you have to get them over the hump. Oh God, social media, you know, just another fad, something like that. But when you show them the real value of it and how you can reach millions of people, and they see how their accounts just explode with more and more followers, they get really excited pretty fast. So you have to get over that hump first, and you have to, I think you don't need to necessarily teach them social media, just teach them the excitement of social media. Once you get them there, it all falls into place. They jump into line.
Questions? Yeah, you've been having for a while. Does the station use any live video streaming? By the way, after we're done here, we've had like a relationship with NASA as far as like going back and forth, and I've got a video that was on our original page like a couple of years ago where they greeted us from space, the social media people here. So I will put that up so you guys can see it again. I know you were around when that happened. So yes, but are they doing it live like we are on Google Plus?
There is live video streaming from the space station. It's mostly Earth views, and there are 4 cameras attached to the outside of the space station. And depending on the satellite capabilities at the time, how close you are to the satellite, how far away they are from the satellite, the cameras may be on, the cameras may be off. So, but yes, there's definitely live streaming from the outside of the space station, but from on the inside, no, there's not.
All right then, yes.
Okay, I have one question. Earlier this month, the president actually tweeted to Scott Kelly.
I saw that. Scott and the president were talking to each other.
The president said, you know, do you ever look up the window and kind of freak out? You know, can they actually monitor their own like Twitter account, or did it go through like on the ground?
Yeah, so do they monitor their own Twitter account or does somebody else monitor it for them? And he was talking about the exchange between Scott Kelly and the President of the United States. which I thought Scott had a really good answer to that, by the way. He goes, yeah, but I do freak out when my commander-in-chief like tweets to me. It's pretty funny. Anyway.
Scott Kelly was live tweeting from space. So those are his words. He was touching the keyboard. So just like you and I were, yeah. So nothing in between there.
They got internet on there.
Yes. But I wanted to go back to her question originally about live streaming from space. There are live streamed events, but it's not 24/7. You know, astronauts will speak to reporters on the ground. They'll speak to students on the ground. Those are live streamed events.
So what tool do you use?
Okay. We haven't used Periscope yet, but as far as live streaming is concerned, Ustream, you know, just NASA television. I don't think we're using social media products yet for our live streaming.
Yeah, they have to also keep control of the video too. Yeah.
Just to go back to the question about training and what you're posting, do you have certain standards or certain things you can't post, or certain language you have to use, and how do you convey that to the astronauts that might be live streaming?
So do you have guidelines for what you can and can't do, and do the astronauts have to follow those, and do you have to follow, kind of explain your guidelines for posting?
Well, we were using a hashtag for a couple of years, hashtag ISS. Well, the trolls jumped on it, songs like too much like ISIS, you know, and then then the higher ups were like, well, who knows what ISS is anyway? That's a NASA acronym. We hate acronyms. We get in trouble for using acronyms. So let's not use hashtag ISS anymore. And we had a bunch of associated ISS hashtags, ISS cargo, hashtag ISS crew, and we're getting rid of those, but there's still a residual effect because there isn't like any policy out there that says stop using it. You know, it's just internal right now, but people external than that, so they use it periodically. So we just hope that it dies a slow death and never use hashtag ISS again.
Yeah, in the back.
Have all these different social channels that you're using, but is there like one person that you're using you have to do certain things, or you're just coming with the content, the ideas, the campaigns with your team internally, and then?
So what's the command structure for the social media? I think that's the question.
Our managers are very hands-off. We have to be flexible and adaptable and fast. Again, it goes back to that tsunami of content. We can't let that hold us down because we'll drown. And they trust us. We have the experience. We're the subject matter experts. So we better not screw up. So, but if there is, like I guess it was in May or June when the SpaceX rocket blew up. And I was live tweeting that. Well, when it blew up, I was hands off from then on out. Headquarters took over. They became the official word, the official representative about that, the official source of information. And I would simply retweet that. So if everything goes nominal, I'm live tweeting it. If something goes off nominal, headquarters is going to take over.
Well, and that makes sense too, because then they have the one voice about what's happening. So there's not, mistakes.
Has the TV show Astronaut Wives Club had any impact on
The TV show Astronaut Wives Club. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're gonna get. There's a troll in the audience here. Sorry.
I think I heard something about that, but NASA does a lot of stuff with a lot of television, a lot of movie stars, and a lot of things like that. We have VIPs that come in and out of Johnson Space Center every day, every week, and we try to find opportunities to link into their social media to get their followers, their eyeballs, that sort of thing. So it's not just any particular, we try to find those, what do you call them? We try to leverage off of the celebrities and the VIPs that visit us.
Makes sense. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the NASA social and how the success of those programs always feel
She's asking about the NASA socials and the success of those programs, and they have been pretty successful. Could you talk about that?
Someone else does a NASA socials. I have never done a NASA social. Someone else takes responsibility for those. So I don't have the technical details about that. So I'm going to have to apologize.
So I think, what time is it?
9:30.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop, guys. I mean, we could ask you questions all day. It's amazing. We've got a few other things we need to do, but could you please give Mark a big hand for coming and sharing with us about how he's handling that? Make sure you follow him on space_station. Go to the International Space Station Facebook page and follow it. It's really interesting. I mean, the stuff that's on it is extremely interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. And in the meanwhile, I also wanted to make sure, and John, you're here, so you've got your book, yeah. So I wanted to also introduce you. There's an author here in the room today, and he brought a book. So if you haven't put your card in here, you want to. John, can you come up and just tell us about your book real quick? Yes, thank you, Mark. And then also, those of you who have jobs, if you could start, yeah, you can, and bye guys online. See you guys soon.